Appreciate it. Good job. Thank you, sir.
It is Wednesday, November 28th, 2012. You've just been listening to comments from President Obama at the White House as he continues his push for an extension of middle-class tax cuts. For those folks who were just listening in to him, he's saying that Congress right now could pass a law to prevent a tax hike on the first $250,000 of income for all households. He says there's a Senate bill that has passed. We just need to get a few House Republicans on board with that. And with that, we are going to bring in one of those House Republicans. We have Tom Cole. He is a GOP congressman from Oklahoma. Join us on the phone right now. Thanks for being with us, Congressman.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. So you were just listening to President Obama's comments there. Now, you are a senior House Republican who is basically, you've broken with your own party in recent days, urging your colleagues not to insist on an extension of the current tax rates for the wealthiest Americans, at least for now. What did you think about the president's comments?
Well, it's always interesting to listen to the president. We obviously disagree about tax rates. I don't think tax rates ought to go up on anybody. I think that'll slow economic growth and cost us jobs. I also think the root of our deficit problem isn't taxes. It's we spend too much and we're not willing to face up on entitlement reform. And it would be helpful if the president would put those things out there. Having said that, my position is, if there are 98% of the American people, if we agree their taxes shouldn't go up, and evidently we do, then we ought to take that off the table. I just think that's the right thing to do. I'm not interested in using them in leverage in a debate. I don't think it's appropriate. Let's do that, and let's continue to fight. I actually think we can win the battle over rates increases, which I think are a big mistake, versus finding revenue by streamlining the tax code. So I agree with the Speaker. I agree with my conference. What we have here perhaps is a disagreement on tactics, but at the end of the day, I think our conference will be very united, and it'll follow the Speaker.
And Congressman Cole, how many of your fellow House Republicans agree with you that maybe you should set aside extending the tax rates for those those households making over $250,000, at least for the time being? How many folks agree with you?
I really don't know. We've had an open discussion. This actually was a position I took a couple weeks ago at a deputy whip meeting, which, of course, those are all off the record, and I said it again at a whip meeting at the request of the whip, and that's supposed to be off the record. Somehow you guys magically find these things out. So now we're talking about it publicly, and that's fine, because this is just my view of what we ought to do. But how many share that view, I don't know. And again, I respect the Speaker. You either trust your negotiator or you don't. The Speaker is our negotiator. The President's going to have to make a deal with the Speaker. You're not going to find a lot of Republicans that are going to break from the Speaker, and they shouldn't. And I certainly wouldn't be one of them. I trust him. But, when you ask my view, in conference or anyplace else, I'm going to tell you what I think. And I think we have an opportunity here to take 98% of the American people out of harm's way, out of risk, and I think we ought to do that.
And Congressman, let me ask you this very quickly. I mean, the Wall Street Journal were reporting this morning on comments made by Erskine Bowles, who co-chaired the White House's 2010 deficit reduction panel. He basically saying that the White House might not actually insist that the tax rates on upper income Americans actually increase all the way back to the Clinton levels. I'm wondering if you see this as a sign of a middle ground.
Well, what I caught in Mr. Bowles' remarks, which I really appreciated, was his insistence that spending restraint and entitlement reform had to be part of the question. That's where the real problem is. So, to me, the tax argument is not a tremendously. It's important because it has a lot to do with job creation, but I think the Democrats are avoiding the real issue. That's where we need to get them focused. And again, I think most Americans, we ought to make sure their taxes aren't going to go up. That's just something we ought to do since we agree on it, and then continue to fight, because I think we'll win the argument. Most Americans know you raise taxes on business people, they can't hire people. They have to, that's just they need jobs as much as they need tax security.
All right. Congressman Cole, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it.